switch it up. Switch it up like it's about to go up, break them like internet. Goofies run up, we leave them in the dead. You know how it go down.
You say, okay, I have a lot of money, but you have no money unless you take profits.
When the first ever spot ETF was created for gold 10x.
And the only thing I really knew was Bitcoin at the time, so I just invested very heavily into that. Rode it all the way up.
What that taught me was that I need to be self-sufficient.
Even the creators have said it's going to be the predecessor of CBDC.
In fact, we about to go up like.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Degen Roundtable, episode 2. We are here to help you navigate the intricacies of the cryptocurrency market, to talk about a lot of different spaces within crypto, within Hex, PulseChain, Richard Heart ecosystem, Bitcoin, Ethereum, the market movers, and to help, hopefully, you not make the same mistakes we have. We've all been in crypto for a few years now. It's been a focus for us. We talk multiple times a week. We chart every day, multiple times a day. And we're really excited to bring our knowledge that we've learned in the space to you. This is free information that is going to help you navigate the space. I do want to let you know that this is not financial advice. We are not financial analysts. We don't do this for a living. So we don't suggest that you take anything that we do here, any trades that we're taking and making for ourselves. We ask you to do your own research, to learn the fundamentals that we're going to show you, but to realize that it is a very, very nuclear space in some cases, in a very challenging space. And we're hopefully here to help you navigate those pitfalls and to help you make some money if that's what you want to do. So today we're going to get into a basic market overview. We are going to talk about PulseChain, which just launched about 40 days ago. So we are just brand new in this layer 1 ecosystem. It is a hard fork of the Ethereum blockchain. And we're going to get into a lot of it because we've been there since the first seconds it launched, making trades before anybody even knew that it existed. So we've been in it from the get-go, and we're going to help you learn some strategies that might be able to help you make money over the long run. Again, not financial advice, so do the research before you decide where you want to put your money, because it is very risky. Just like any time you invest money, you want to know where you're putting it. If I'm putting it on my pillow, I know it's just going to depreciate. If I'm putting it into the bank, I might be making a couple percentage points, but inflation is still making my money depreciate. So the question is, how do you make your money either stay the same or increase in value rather than just leave value on the table, every second, every minute, every hour, every day of your life? And that's really what you need to think about. You need to decide, hey, what am I going to do to be self-sufficient, to be self-sovereign, and to be responsible for my own well-being, not just financially, but physically, mentally, and, spiritually, if that's your thing as well. You have to decide what it's going to be to make your life a better place. And we might have some ideas that may or may not resonate with you, but we're here to share those ideas for free. And that's about what I have to open the program today. We will get into a few other topics, but they're surprises. So be ready for a nice roller coaster. We're going to start with a market analysis and general technical analysis overview with Jay. If you don't mind, anything you want to add to the open, feel free. But take away the start of the show. Thank you.
No, nothing to add, brother. Good job on that. Thank you thank you guys so much for joining us for the second episode here. Like Brendan said, we're going to go over a general market analysis first, see what's going on with Bitcoin, and then we are going to deep dive into PulseChain, the Richard Heart ecosystem, and the, just overall our experience so far since starting with PulseChain. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with you guys for Bitcoin. Give me 1 second. Where are we? Go. All right, let me know if you guys can see that.
We got you.
Cool, awesome. So we are currently on day number 11 of the new 60-day cycle. We have a high here currently on day 8. And what tells us that we are currently in a new 60-day cycle? Well, last week, during our first episode, we spoke about some key levels that Bitcoin needed to recover in order for us to have strong confidence that we are in a new cycle. What were those levels? Well, firstly, if you guys take a look at this downward sloping trend line here, I mentioned that first we would need to recover that trend line and start closing a few days above that. We did that. If we turn on our Bollinger Bands, I also mentioned that we needed to recover that 20-day moving average. We're on a daily chart. We did that. Let me turn this off real quick. As far as Fibonacci levels are concerned, if we take the swing high here to our swing low, I said that we needed to, minimize that. I said that we needed to recover this 382 level, right, at 27,000. We did that. So all of this strong price action happened literally within less than a week, over the weekend and into Monday, right? We recovered the 382, the 618, the 786, and more importantly, if you guys notice, we broke past the last cycle high, and then just recently, this was on Friday, right? This happened on Friday, the 23rd of June. We also broke past the cycle high from 2 cycles ago, right? So all of that tells me that we are pretty much in a new cycle. Now, what's going to happen from here? Right. Well, we'll go over both the bullish and the bearish scenario, right? If you guys are looking on the daily here on the RSI, I have a blank chart here just with the RSI. You notice that on the daily chart, this is starting to come up against the oversold area here. So if Bitcoin were to carry this momentum, we would need a little bit more bullish news next week. Right. So, and tomorrow's Monday, the market's open tomorrow, the digital market's open tomorrow. So we'll see what next week brings. The same way that last week was pretty important for Bitcoin to determine what move it wanted to make, whether it wanted to go to the upside or downside. This next week is important to determine what's going to happen from this point forward, right? Where is the momentum heading? Are we going to continue to the upside, or are we going to start pulling back? Right. If you notice here, for me personally, when I look at this chart, this move to the upside here looks very similar to this move to the upside here and to this move to the upside here. See, we had very strong, powerful moves to the upside, and then we spent a few days around that price action. Well, that looks very, very similar to the move that we're making here. So once again, next week is a very, very important time to pay attention to see which direction Bitcoin is going to move. Now, if we get some more bullish momentum, the next level that I am looking for Bitcoin to claim is right here, the 1.618 level from our fib retracement from our swing high to swing low. This point 1.618 level at around 34,815. Now, I do want to show you guys a few variables that you need to be aware of to see where this price action is headed to next. So first level, that 34,815. Now, if we take a fib retracement here from the all-time high on Bitcoin into our bear market lows here, you could see that level, right, around, get a better visual here. Right, you could see that 34,000, 35,000 level is very close to this 382 Fibonacci level from our swing high here, from our all-time high to the swing low here, our bear market lows. So in order for us to carry this momentum forward, this will be a key area to recover, right? This 35,894 level. And then if you guys notice, right, this move to the upside here, that would complete the macro wave one for Bitcoin. And we seem to have found a bottom for wave two. And so this next move upward is our wave three. Now, if you guys wanted to get some estimates as far as where wave three is going to head for Bitcoin, what we can do is take a Fibonacci extension from our bear market lows here, take that to the top of wave one, to the bottom of wave two. And a very common extension for wave threes is this 1.618 level here, right? Which is around 50,000. And so I expect Bitcoin at the minimum to hit 50,000. Maybe it happens this year if we get some really bullish news and that momentum carries us forward. But at the minimum, I expect Bitcoin to hit 50,000 in wave three. Now, what do we know about Elliott wave? Well, we know that a wave three, at the very least, has to match the percent gain from wave one. So if we take our price tool here and take that to the top of wave one, right, that's about 100% increase, right? That's about a double. And so at the minimum, we expect wave three to at least match that wave one. So we take that same price-based tool, take it to the bottom of our wave two, and at the very least, we expect also a 100% increase. Does that seem familiar? That takes us to around $50,000, which is the minimum that we're expecting from the top of this wave three. So just a little bit of confluence of variables there for you guys to keep an eye on when you're looking for some targets, right? Now, what happens? That's the bullish scenario. What happens if we were to get some bearish news and we were going to start breaking down next week? Well, let us take that same fib retracement and see from the bottom, take it to the top here. Well, what can we expect? Well, at the very minimum, I think Bitcoin will probably drop back down here to this 382 level. Going to test this 382 level. So look for anywhere between 28,800 to 27,000. Right? But if that were to happen, what you're gonna need to watch out for is if we turn on the Bollinger Bands here, right? Watch for Bitcoin to drop down to this 10 moving average first, right? Around 29,000. If we lose that, we're headed back down to the 20 moving average, right? So when you're looking for entry points, right? Let's say this started to pull back and you're looking for entry points to put some buy orders in. Start with a 10 moving average, right? If we lose the 10 moving average, go to the 20. If we lose the 20, then look for price action to keep heading down. Right? So at the most, if this is the top of our wave one of three here, I would expect Bitcoin to pull back anywhere between 28,800 to this 27,000 area. Right? But whether we continue heading up or we head back down is really going to be determined by what happens within the market next week. Right? So that's all I have for you guys as far as the current market update. If you have anything to add, Josh, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, sure. Hey, before you get off of before you mute your microphone, I just had a quick question for you. Do we do any sort of collaborating during the week on the market analysis or anything like that? Like, do we talk about market analysis as far as what we're going to present for the show or anything? Is it safe to say that we don't coordinate any sort of market analysis together?
Yeah, I mean, we share what we see on a daily basis, right? But there's no, like, we don't have a script for it, right? Everything that I just told you right there is on the fly. I think anybody who's good at reading people's faces, right, can see that if I was reading from a script, they'd be able to suss that out really easily, right? So everything here that we're doing is on the fly, is on practice, right?
Mhm.
But we do throughout the week, we share information with each other, right? We check our work with each other. And if you're trying to become competent at technical analysis, this is the kind of thing that you're probably going to want to engage in, right? You get together with a group of people who are like-minded, who are also trying to learn TA, check your work against each other, right? Because if you see that they're coming to the same conclusions as you are, then that's going to give you more confidence in your own analysis, right?
Mhm.
Right. And if you don't have a group of people, look, go to YouTube, right? People who do technical analysis for crypto, there's a lot of them out there, right? For example, our mentors, Charlie and Miguel. Charlie's a TA guy. When I started, I checked my work against his all the time, right? And so, yeah. To answer your question, no, we don't script any of this. Everything that we're doing is on the fly, right? So.
Perfect. And that's one, I think that's one of the benefits of having multiple people in our group that have various specialties is that we can bounce different things off of each other. Let me go ahead and share a screen real quick. And we get my chart pulled up here. You pretty much touched on anything. There's just a couple things I'm going to go over, and they're pretty much along the same lines that you went over. So first thing that we have up, we're looking at the Bitcoin 1 week chart. We're looking at the Coinbase chart. It's a pretty simple chart. So first thing that I want to look at is that macro extension. So I'm pretty much going to reiterate exactly what you said. So we're going to go from our market or our cycle high last cycle. And so bear with me one moment. Okay, here we go. So we're going to go from our cycle high down to our bear bottom lows. And when we take a look at the extension, pretty much hitting, we punched through that 0.23 level. And yeah, you pretty much already said everything about it. What I want to bring focus to is, the macro extension, what we're going to be looking at moving once we get into the bull run. That first real price goal is going to be that $98,000 level. And I think $100,000 is going to be a big psychological level too. So that'll line up in that area. And then a strong goal would be that $150,000 range. I think that if we get a strong institutional money, plus we get a solid retail backing behind it, I'm pretty sure that would be pretty easy to accomplish. And then we start getting up into the $200,000 price range. That's a very strong bull market run. Sentiment would have to be through the roof, but that's ultimately what I wanted to look at. So given a little hopium for this upcoming cycle, those are some realistic numbers that we can look at. Also want to take a look at the short-term extension. So if we're going to go from the last 60-day cycle high down to the 60-day cycle low, that short 34-day, 60-day cycle that we had. Give me 1 second. Here we go. All right, this is just the extension. So pretty much bouncing off of what you said. I believe your number was 34,000. It's really with the price action of Bitcoin, it's just dropping this in different places, but 35,000 will be that first target. Then we could punch all the way up here to 42,000. Those are very, very realistic options. Next thing that I wanted to get into is a short-term retracement. If we do a pullback, like you said, that $29,000 range, anywhere between $28,000 and $29,000. Again, I'm not saying anything that you haven't said already. It's just good to see a second chart, get some additional analysis out of it. One thing that I did want to show is let me hide this real quick. Bear with me. One thing that I did want to show real quick is what seems to be a pretty, can make a strong argument for the first Elliott wave of the 4-year cycle. So if we take a look at this, So we can see from the bottom here, we got a wave 1, we got a wave 2, we got a wave 3 up here, a wave 4 down here. Now the wick overtakes wave 1 on that fourth, on the fourth wave. If you don't go from the wicks, it doesn't overtake it. All right. So if you take a look at those fib levels along with that, what you see that's pretty interesting is we can see that wave 5, it could come up here to 35, which is also that short term. So if you looked at that 35,000, we could see that number coming in right there to 35,000, or we could even come up here to 42,000. So it's interesting that the macro fib extension as well as the short term fib extension, they're pretty much lining up right there. So if we have that fifth wave impulse right now, then those are two pretty solid numbers. And do you want me to cover Ethereum? Cool if I cover Ethereum, or do we?
Yeah, let's hop into Ethereum. I think it's important that we start with Bitcoin because it's the first mover generally, and also with the recent news with the potential Bitcoin spot ETF with BlackRock and others, putting that into the market. We really think that Bitcoin is going to be the first mover, but that doesn't mean that Ethereum isn't going to potentially have an opportunity to gain on Bitcoin. What happens if Ethereum has a spot ETF, once BlackRock gets approved for that, not only does Ethereum get a spot ETF, but who knows what else to get a spot ETF from there, right? The floodgates could be open. So it's important to look at the two main coins, and we personally do consider those to be Bitcoin and Ethereum. So yeah, go ahead, Josh.
For sure. So the biggest thing with Ethereum's going to be interesting to watch this year because for the first time it bottomed 5 or 6 months prior to Bitcoin. And even when I was preparing for the analysis for the show, there's a lot of, especially like right now with Bitcoin dominance going up, which I'll cover here in a second. It's definitely an interesting time for Ethereum. But let's go ahead and take a look at that macro for Ethereum. So again, we're going to go 2021 cycle high down to the 2022 cycle low. Again, it was only 7 months long. It wasn't a long bear market for Ethereum. But if we take a look, we see that first macro extension goal is going to be 7,500. Second goal is going to be 11,000. Then we got 15, and then we have 18. If we have a super strong market, these numbers can certainly hit, especially if Ethereum starts to take a lot of market cap away from Bitcoin. We could be able to see that. But we could also see similar how Bitcoin started to round off. Ethereum could do the same thing. So we might not see as many X's. It's interesting. It's almost like a seesaw. Ethereum could overtake it and it could blow through the stratosphere, or it could start to round off similar to Bitcoin did 4 years ago to 8 years ago, the trajectory wise. So I wanted to point that out. Let's go ahead and take a look at the short-term extension as well. So what's interesting about this is Bitcoin has already surpassed the last cycle high and Ethereum hasn't. So Ethereum's still at that psychological 0.5 level. It's teetering on the line because it doesn't know if it wants to go up, and it's just an interesting time right now for Ethereum. It's in that pause, that waiting game. A lot of the money, especially over the last week, has gone into Bitcoin, but this is what Ethereum's looking like. And what's interesting is I can turn the extension and I can turn the retracement on, and they're pretty much hitting the same levels, right? So, if we continue to go up to the $1,900 range, $2,000 on up to $2,100, then we can start looking at maybe a $2,400, $2,500 price. But it still has some work to go. And then if the market were to turn over tomorrow, there isn't that many gains that would be lost right now on Ethereum. We certainly slump back down into the $1,700 range on down to the $1,600 range. So Ethereum right now is pretty much on a pause. It's just looking at the market, trying to figure out what's going on. And this is the reason why. Is if you take a look at the Bitcoin dominance, you'll see that for the last 2 years, Bitcoin dominance has been in this channel here. And then last week, at the beginning of June, it started to punch through. And then sure enough, last week, once we had that surge with Bitcoin, it finally broke through that 2-year mark, where it was in a pretty defined channel. That's fine, because if we come back here and we take a look at the last bull cycle, what we can see is, we'll take a look at it right here. So this was the 2017 blow off. We can see that Bitcoin dominance started to increase, and Bitcoin dominance really didn't start to come down till the end of 2020, and then it fell off a rock. So while Bitcoin dominance is going up in the short term, of course, that means Ethereum and the altcoins, they might not get as many gains, but what is encouraging is it's following script. It's doing exactly the same procedures that it did last year. It may have taken a little bit longer. I definitely didn't expect it for the last 2 years to stay within this channel. But nonetheless, it's broken through, and everything that has been going on, especially last cycle, it's looking like it's starting to do that same thing. So that's what I have for TA. I'm going to either kick it back to Jay or to Brendan and figure out if we want to hop right into the PulseChain TA or whatever you wanted to do, Brendan.
Yeah, let me ask you guys a couple questions. So I think that was really good information. So Jay, if the first thing as you're going through your charts, if we continue to have a positive cycle, talking about your bullish scenario a little bit. So we continue to have a positive cycle for this 60-day cycle. Currently it's early, right, in the cycle. So are we going to have a left translated cycle, which is we see the high, in the first half? We're going to have a right translated cycle where we continue to go up and see the high in the second half of the 60-day cycle. And then let's just say we continue to get some good news and we have positive momentum going into the next 60-day cycle. So we potentially have two positive 60-day cycles in a row, which we haven't had the benefit of having for a while. What would be the scenario there, and how would you see that playing out if we were to have two positive 60-day cycles in a row, assuming we continue to have the bullish scenario in this 60-day cycle?
If we have two straight positive 60-day cycles, like for example, if Jerome Powell says, look, we're gonna have another pause, then I can see us getting to that 50,000 mark for Bitcoin within this year, right? That's going to take a lot of bullish momentum. Now you ask a question, how are we going to determine whether we're going to have a right translated or left translated cycle? Look, all you have to do is on day 30, let me go ahead and share my screen here real quick. There we go. All right, so we are currently on day 10, right? What you're going to do is you're going to take your time tool and you're going to extend it all the way to day 30, right? That puts us Saturday, July 15th. Now, if Bitcoin makes a new high past day 30, then you can pretty confidently say, look, we're in a right translated cycle, right? If Bitcoin fails to make a new high after day 30, then we're in a left translated cycle. So the next few weeks is going to be pretty crucial to pay attention to, right? Because if you're doing any swing trading, what happens after day 30 is pretty much going to determine how you are going to move within the market, right? So, but yeah, as far as the bullish scenario is concerned, if Bitcoin has a lot more bullish news over the next two cycles, if JP says, look, we're gonna keep the rates where it is, we're still planning to increase rates later down the year. But as far as I'm concerned, for now, we're gonna hold it where it's at. Then we have the potential to possibly go up there to that 50,000 area that me and Josh were talking about earlier. I actually wanted to comment a little bit on what Josh said about Ethereum, right? So he mentioned the fact that, well, Ethereum is lagging behind Bitcoin a little bit, right? And I saw a few people asking that within the chat today, and I think Jeff asked about it specifically, right? Why is Bitcoin making such large moves, and then Ethereum and the altcoins are lagging behind? Well, look, guys, all you have to consider in order to answer that question is, well, number one, what happened within the past few weeks, right? Gary Gensler and the SEC filed a lawsuit against Coinbase and Binance, right? And what's important about that lawsuit? Well, Gensler named specific coins, specific altcoins, really popular ones, high market cap, altcoins that have been around for a long time, like Cardano, like Solana, some of the GameFi coins like Sand, Axis, Infinity, right? He named very specific coins within this lawsuit. So what do people tend to generally do when FUD like that starts to happen? Well, they take their capital from those altcoins and they funnel back into what? Into lower risk assets. In this case, it was Ethereum and Bitcoin, right? So that right there pretty much explains why we saw a sharp spike in Bitcoin dominance. Well, that FUD caused a lot of people to transfer their capital from these altcoins, specifically the ones that Gensler named, like Solana, Cardano, Matic, back into Bitcoin, right? So that's number one. Number two is what followed after that. What bullish news did we get? Well, BlackRock said they were going to file for a spot Bitcoin ETF. And so the news overall, both the bearish and the bullish news favored Bitcoin. So not only did people start funneling their capital from these altcoins into Bitcoin, people started buying more Bitcoin once BlackRock said that they were going to file for that spot Bitcoin ETF. What followed after that? You had other large companies, large asset management companies like Fidelity, like Charles Schwab, saying, look, guys, we are now also going to file for a spot Bitcoin ETF. So overall, the news within the market was bullish for Bitcoin. And so what are people going to do? They're going to take their capital from these altcoins to Bitcoin, right? And then people who were a little bit hands off with the cryptocurrency market because they were, they're conservative, are now looking at brand recognition, right? BlackRock. Well, you have the number one asset manager in the world, almost $10 trillion in assets being managed by BlackRock. If they're getting into it, that must be a green light for me to invest in Bitcoin. So the people who are a little bit more conservative with investing, they see BlackRock investing in Bitcoin. Well, now that gives me the green light to invest. So the overall market sentiment was positive for Bitcoin as a whole, which explains why all of this capital started getting funneled into Bitcoin and why the altcoins, Ethereum and others, are lagging a little bit, right? So I just wanted to explain that a little bit because a lot of people have that question, right? Why is Bitcoin rallying, but everything else is pretty much still lagging behind? So I hope that explains it a little bit.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on it a little bit also. So in the event that we have one or two cycles that are super bullish, given the trend with Bitcoin dominance where it's at right now, you'll see Bitcoin leading that charge. You're going to see all boats rising. You're going to see Ethereum and all the altcoins coming up in value also, but you're going to see a majority of the percentage of that green candle going into Bitcoin. All right. The time that you want to see, so you have to take a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart when you're looking at those sort of runs to figure out what's going to happen. So until the Bitcoin dominance can get below that 47 or 48% mark, it's going to be Bitcoin that's really going to be leading the way. Now, if we see super bullish news and all of a sudden that Bitcoin dominance drops below that 47% level, then we'll start to see the altcoins sort of gaining more percentage on those green candles than Bitcoin. So that's why Bitcoin dominance is so important to pay attention to when you're looking at whether Bitcoin's going to be leading the charge or Ethereum and the other altcoins are going to be leading.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing to that. You said, is there any news that's going to prop up the altcoins? And here's a question, right? We already have one of the senators, Warren Davidson of Ohio, leading the charge to bring some news against Gary Gensler to try to get him fired. So if we go to a point where Gary Gensler gets fired, and this is, guys, isn't anything we plan to talk about, but this is things we talk about all the time, so we're fine going off the cuff. But if Gary Gensler ends up getting fired, what does that mean? To me, that means not only is Bitcoin going to probably have some really, really, really good bullish momentum, but also potentially having some really positive regulatory action for crypto in general. That means the altcoins are going to get a little bit of a bullish run. So one of the things that's going to lead to a continued bullish scenario in 2023 leading into 2024 is some of this FUD that's been surrounding the SEC. And once that starts to dissipate, right, just one coin, right, just a black coin ETF, spot ETF specifically, thinking that that's going to get approved is making this market move very, very quickly upwards, continue more positive momentum, and a lot of this FUD getting phased out. They would say, okay, maybe these altcoins are becoming a lot more safe because we're having positive, real, good regulatory action, right? Not something that's going to stifle innovation, not something that's going to stifle crypto, but something that's going to allow the United States to be a leader in this space. If we have that, not only does Bitcoin get super bullish, but all coins get super bullish as well. And where both sides, Democrats and Republicans, have talked out against the SEC recently and talked out against against Gensler, we truly, at least me personally, I truly believe that we're going to see a little bit of a flip here in the near future. Once he's out, floodgates open, get someone in there that's going to put some positive regulatory action within crypto. Because here's the point, right? What is crypto? Is it a security, right? Is it a decentralized finance, or is it something different? Do we need to regulate in cryptocurrencies to make it something of its own? And I don't want to get down a rabbit hole here. This is for future episodes, but these are the things that we're going to be talking about as we move forward. And I know that this was a 10-minute segment on TA that's now gone 25 minutes. So I'd like to move it on, but I will open the floor if anybody has one or two quick minutes to add.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and add on to that. It's actually super quick. Specifically what you're saying, I'm going to go ahead and specify actually that when I said last week, right, that there's the very real possibility and most likely that, well, we're probably going to get an ETH spot, right? This is actually them going like, okay, flooding all those shit coins, move people to Bitcoin. Okay, now that people are liking the Bitcoin, now we're going to move to ETH, right? The other blue chip. Now we're going to move it down the line, and it's going to take those retailers from one spot to the next and continue it down. So easy peasy, right? It's actually quite simple, and you can really it's very visible when you start seeing it that way.
Thank you, Nate. Okay, I know that we've that was really good information. And again, we're not here to agree. There's a bunch of us, okay? We're not here to shill one viewpoint. In fact, we appreciate other people's opinions and viewpoints, because our ultimate goal is to be as correct as possible. And if I'm wrong, if someone else comes up with a really good point, and I need to then look into what he's talking about and reshape my opinion, then that's going to help me long term. And so when Jay and Josh were talking earlier about how we talk during the week, but we don't set up exactly what we're going to say. So if they have differing opinions, which they did episode 1, that's great. And then we see how it plays out, because there's not always one opinion on the matter. And so that's the last thing I want to say on that. The next thing we're going to get into is our first real topic of the day, since we are talking about the Richard Heart ecosystem, talking about PulseChain, which launched, like I said, just a little over 40 days ago. We are going to talk about introduction, the key features, and the advantages of PulseChain, and why this platform was even created to begin with. I want to just start with a quick intro personally, a personal experience. There's a story that I told to these guys just before we get on here, and I think that it's a really important topic, because you have to say, hey, what's my mindset? What's my mentality? Am I serious about this space? Am I serious about making money? Or is it just when it's convenient? You know, so we were waiting for PulseChain to launch for 2 years, honestly. But it started to get really serious for a few weeks, that it was imminent, that we knew that it was going to happen any day. We thought that we were going to get some information about a snapshot, right? Because this is a fork of the Ethereum blockchain. So every coin on Ethereum gets copied over to PulseChain, right? So it's not an Ethereum coin. It's now a coin that's copied over onto the blockchain. So what does a snapshot mean? A snapshot means that, okay, this date and time, we see all of these coins on Ethereum, and this is what's going to be copied over. So anything purchased on Ethereum after, or anything sold after, you're still going to get that copy, right? That's what we mean by snapshot. So we were waiting for that news. Didn't quite happen the way that we anticipated, which we'll get into a little bit more. But my girlfriend texted me and she says, hey, I just had the longest day of the year at work. She had a really, really bad way. She never says that. She never complains. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, whatever you want to do tonight, we'll do. She's like, I actually don't want to go home, which is very unlike her. She's like, I want to go to the bar. Let's get a couple drinks. It's Friday night. And I'm like, okay, no problem. So I load up my backpack, have my computer, have my charger. I had already told her the week leading up to this that once PulseChain launches, I need to be ready to go right away. It doesn't matter if I'm on the road, we have to stop. I have to get online. Doesn't matter if we're eating dinner in the middle of a fancy restaurant. I have to get on right away. The thing is, I explained to her what this was into very deep detail so she could understand why it was important for me to hit this right in the first minutes that it launched and hit the ground running. So this day, worst day of her year. And by the way, we've only been dating 6 months. So the worst day since I've met her. And we pull up to the bar and I get a message from the guy saying, hey, launch official. Literally, it's launched. Okay, it's launched. And I'm like, I look over to her. I'm sitting in the driver's seat. I just parked. I said, PulseChain just launched. She says, okay. I said, I gotta get on my computer. She's like, I know. So we walk into the bar. I load up my laptop. I text my friend lives around the corner who's friends with both of us. And I said, hey, can you come keep my girlfriend company? I have business to do. I have work to do. So she comes, she keeps her company. Props to my girlfriend. She understood the whole situation. But again, because I was open and honest with her about the importance of it before it happened. And so she knew why it was necessary. And that first moment that I signed on, my first trade was 0.001 pulse. Okay. Very shortly after, the average transaction was 4,000 pulse. And unless you sacked for pulse 3 years prior, nobody had pulse except for the Ethereum that crossed over. Therefore, you have nothing for gas fees unless you literally signed on the first few minutes of the platform. And I speak for myself and I speak for everybody here. This is why we feel that we have some really knowledge to provide for you, because we were there seconds and minutes into the launch because we knew the importance of it. We were working on the testnet for years. People say testnet 1, testnet 2, testnet 3. Why is there a testnet 3? Why is there a testnet 4? You know, all of these things that we didn't expect, but we were ready to go. And we had a plan and we made sure that no matter what the case was, we were going to be able to execute that plan. So I know that was a long intro into this section, into PulseChain, but what it comes down to, again, is responsibility. What is your ultimate goal? And you have to realize, hey, am I just going to buy and hold and save that long term? Sure, that's great. Or am I going to make a difference in my life right this second, right? That's the question. And so this is a quick introduction. I'm going to pass this off first to Nate to take away your experiences and a little bit of the introduction, but don't get too ahead of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, it's kind of funny because a little bit of I want to say it's almost similar with what happened with me with PulseChain, because it was simply my only day off that I ever had, right? And I reserved that night that I get off of work for me and my girl just to spend time together, right? And I'm very specific about that for reasons, obviously. The funny thing was, I'm sitting there, you know, we're having drinks, you know, we're getting drunk and everything, having a good time, doing our thing. And then all of a sudden I see pop up on the computer, we're live. I'm like, oh, did Miguel and Charlie go live? And I look and it's like, no, PulseChain is live. I'm like, right? And I started like going ham because I had everything already set up. I already knew like where to go. I already had figured out exactly what it is I wanted to do upon launch, right? And so because I already had the strategy, I was like, it's go time, right? I was one of those guys, literally within the first 10 minutes of launch, I had made, it had to been right around 40 transactions of just like, you see those memes of like cats doing this and whatever. That was me. I'm not even going to lie. I straight up just left my girl at that point in time. I'm like, oh shit, Cassie, PulseChain just launched. And I just started going, and it was supposed to be our day. Yeah, I completely left her. And yeah, so she got mad at me over that. But you know, I got everything done within those first 10 minutes. And the funniest thing was because I had like planned for it, right? And I figured exactly what it is I wanted to do. And it literally worked exactly how I wanted it to work. With one exception, I was actually confused. I was actually really confused by the gas fees, because it was like 0.002 pulse to do gas fees. And I'm sitting here like, okay, I guess Richard Hart was really right. It's very cheap to do this. I found out later that I got incredibly lucky on that, because I had forgotten that on Clayton DFK, DeFi Kingdoms, they have a save function for your gas, right? Where you can specify an incredibly low amount of gas. I forgot that I had that on, and I was doing transactions so fast. And it wasn't until one last transaction, which was e-fiat, hilariously enough, that my transaction got stuck. This is when everybody started exploding in the chats about like, oh, the bridge is broken, blah, 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 right? And everybody knows that was a big thing, the whole broken bridge thing. I got everything with like 0.002 or 5 or whatever pulse done with that amount of time. Important fact, I put everything into pulse. Everything into pulse. That was the strategy. Get as much gas fees as you can, right? So yeah, it was a really, really, really funny time, just getting everything in there. But the strangest thing was like, I did everything within those first 10 minutes. And then I just kind of was like this. I was like, now what? I literally didn't know what to do. I was like, okay, well, that was exciting for 10 minutes. Okay, now what? And so I spent literally like the next week just helping out new people, like, oh, just do this. And I'm sitting there like this on my own bags, like,
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks for that, Nate. It's really good. And when he says sitting on his bags, I don't think that's what he means, and we'll tell you more about that later, because the early parts of PulseChain were very, very profitable if you were there early, and if you were there before the bridge opened. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. So Dace, love to open the floor to you. I know you have a bit to talk about here, so take it away.
Sure. Yeah. If we're talking about our experiences of PulseChain launch, I bridged over a bit of funds. So I was stacking a lot of liquid Hex. I came into Hex and into the whole RH ecosystem through some of the people that same guys you guys have come to it through in, I guess, 2021 or so. And then didn't ever really get into staking it, although that was, at the time that was the big narrative was, stake it and make your yield. And we could get into that. That's a whole nother topic. But I decided when I learned about PulseChain and PulseX, I was not there for PulseChain. I was able to sacrifice for PulseX. And from the sacrifice date of PulseX on, I made it my goal to have as big of a liquid Hex bag as I could so that I could get the copies. The copies were kind of the real goal of accumulation all the way down in terms of the price action on Hex for more than a year. And so the bridge opens, I bridge over my first decent little chunk of Hex and made some incredible ratio trades and pickups like you're talking about, Brendan. Yeah, look, it's just about balancing and watching multiple different charts, right? So the whole first year of things, it was just watch Hex go down and buy more when it goes down. And now I'm learning to watch a lot of different ratios all at once. I'm learning, I was actually looking at the BTC dominance chart at the same time you guys are looking at. That's a chart that's very, very interesting and I think pretty important. for a lot of people to take a look at when you're considering what coins to get into. Timing wise, I think the relative size, right? Especially if you're a beginner, the relative size of the coins. I know when I was new, I wanted to have a big number of coins, and you realize, okay, the bigger the number of coins you have, the more volatile of a thing you have. That's something that I think a lot of beginning people should remember. And so, especially if you're getting into PulseChain, which if you look at, just the number of coins per dollar on PulseChain versus the number of Satoshis per dollar, that tells you something about the liquidity and the scale of things, right? And so as a beginner, you want to take a look at, okay, compare their relative weights in terms of their ability to be moved by economic dollars put in. That's the name of the game. We're all talking about all of these different narratives and all these different reasons to put your coins in different places. And the reality is, what you want is for people to buy after you've bought, right? More people to come into the ecosystem. And that's why I think what Richard Hart has built is so unique, and I think has a lot of potential durability and longevity in an otherwise very volatile space. So that's a little about me and my take on it, and kind of how it has gone for me so far.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll get into some other things later, some pitfalls and things. And one of the things that you talked about earlier was a coin on PulseChain called Fluffy. I don't want to talk about it right now. But when you have a new platform, when you have any layer one, you're gonna have a whole lot of coins that are being built on this platform. And the question is, how do you decide what's worth putting your money into and what's not? The first thing I'll say is you have to do your own research, and you have to be responsible for your own decisions. And we're going to get into some of that later. That doesn't mean that it's not fun to be a degenerate sometimes. I mean, heck, this show's called the Degen Roundtable for a reason. But yeah, so when you talk about that, there's some very, very few things. In fact, there's an Ethereum coin called Pepe, that some people may know. It had a really great run. A lot of people got free copies on Ethereum over to the PulseChain, and it may or may not have had a huge run recently, a quick 10x here on PulseChain just recently. So yeah, you can make a lot of money in some of these, what we like to call meme coins, but you really have to be careful, because you're going to lose your pants as well. You have to be ready to lose whatever you risk, because it's very volatile. It's very risky. And a lot of these new coins, all these small coins, you don't even know if they're real or just Ponzi's for people to make money off you. And so, word of wisdom again, not financial advice. And we'll continue on to the next person. So I appreciate you standing by here. I know that you have a few things to say about Pulse, so take it away.
Yeah, so my story is a rather quick and simple one. Brendan, actually, you were the one that saved me when PulseChain launched. I was going through my Telegram messages not too long ago, seeing who was the moon ganger that sent me like the 100 pulse necessary to get myself out of a stuck transaction. When the chain first launched, I was on and tapping about in 30 minutes, and I got one of those MetaMask stuck transactions, and didn't have enough gas to unstick it or to power through it. And so asking around in the chats, and eventually Brendan sent me some pulse, and I used that to essentially jigger around and fuck with MetaMask until it allowed me to cancel my very first transaction. From there, it was just a quick matter of swapping over a bunch of Hex and doing all the plays that we had been planning out for quite a while once the ecosystem launched. I had basically just bought a bunch of Ethereum Hex and then waited for the snapshot, and then when we were given the free copies, I just took that and swapped it into PulseX, swapped it into Pulse, bought a couple other degenerate things here and there, lost a lot of money on those, but hey, this is the degen life. But that's really my quick little story on PulseChain. Yeah, nothing really crazy. Just be careful what you're doing out there. And it pays to have a network of gentlemen who also know what to expect and ready to take your back when we need a little bit of assistance.
Yeah,
That's all I got.
Thanks, Will. It's funny that you said that because honestly, I didn't even know that I sent you that. The gas. So when we say gas,
Yeah.
Every transaction fee costs gas, just like your car. It costs a certain amount of coins to be able to have a transaction. And if you don't have the coins of the native ecosystem, in this case, PulseChain, you can't make a transaction. And so you are stuck. And so you need somebody that you trust that can send you some Pulse to be able to get some coins. So I know that myself and Nate and again, Will, I didn't even know you at the time.
Yeah.
We weren't friends. We became friends after that, and not because I sent you coins. Again, you didn't even know that. That was just because we were looking out for each other, and we were looking out for people that were in the same spaces that we were. I know that I've had a lot of help as I've grown through crypto, made a lot of mistakes, but it's really what we were trying to accomplish with this show is to help you for free. I gave you those PulseChain. It wasn't a lot of money, right?
It's 100
But for you, it was absolutely enormous, right? It was a lifesaver. So for me, it was a very small thing, but for you, it was a lifesaver. And that's what we really want this show to be. We want to be able to help all of you out there navigate the space and come to an understanding of, hey, this is information that's free that I can just watch, listen, and learn from people that have had these experiences. And then, maybe I'm in this space. Maybe I've never bought crypto in my life, but hopefully this will help you increase your understanding a little bit. So, Malik, are you ready to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's go.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, my experience was pretty much the same. I was at work, I hopped on, I was just checking Telegram. It was the last 15 minutes of my shift. And I see the guys going crazy. It launched. I'm like, shit, I gotta drop what I'm doing, grab, some Pulse, and then it's cool. I'll just figure it out, in 20 minutes when I'm home or something, right? So my experience was pretty much the same as Nate's, get as much Pulse as you can in the initial stages, and then, help out everybody else was just pretty much what we were just doing in the main chats and just helping out people that were asking. But to further talk about PulseChain, I really wanted to kind of touch more into the basis of PulseChain, the utility, how it helps, how, like, what is the purpose of PulseChain, right? Because most people probably wouldn't really understand it, right? So it really comes down to Richard Hart's version of Ethereum, basically. Right? He envisioned a better Ethereum where it doesn't have giant gas fees, where it runs faster, where it has, no network congestion and a lower point of entry. It's not super biased, even though, I mean, we'll be frank, the Richard Hart ecosystem is kind of biased towards Richard Hart ecosystem tokens. So there is that to take into consideration. However, when you compare it to Ethereum, where, I mean, we've kind of touched on it, where if they do get the Ethereum ETF, they're going to start purchasing Ethereum. And what happens when the richest company in the world with unlimited money starts buying up all the Ethereum? Ethereum no longer is it's no longer a consensus. It's it's whatever BlackRock wants it to be, and there's nothing you can do about it. So PulseChain's mainly used to alleviate that, as well as the gas fees, which, I mean, once the bull run comes, you're not gonna, you might have $300, $600 gas fees. If we're talking about unstaking, your Hex, that's you're going to be eating into your profits if you don't have enough, which is why it's recommended to have a pretty big bag of Hex before you start even staking, because once you unstake, it has to calculate each day that it was staked, and each day will cost gas. And if Ethereum's at say 10K, bro, that's like 1,000 for a 2 or 3 year stake, and that you're really not even making money off that. So you know, um, my experience with getting PulseChain is, you know, focusing on the PulseChain ecosystem and getting the initial Richard Hart ecosystem coins, which are going to be the main ones, which is going to be Pulse, Hex, both sides. I know everybody says eHex is dead, but if eHex dies, the pHex also dies. So you really can't have either die. You want both to succeed. So you want to grab both. You want to grab some Hedron, you know, some PulseX, Icosa, grab all those, because those are all going to be the coins that are going to pump the hardest. And I mean, on PulseChain, it is what it is. They're just going to pump the hardest. So if you like free money, those are the coins that you want to be looking into, the coins that you want to be DCAing into, and you want to make sure that your PulseChain is like your Ethereum, right? You want to have your Pulse for the gas fees, which we've all kind of touched on. Your gas fees, that's very important to understand when gas fees are high and when gas fees are low, what, you know, constitutes as a high gas fee and not, so that you know if you have enough gas for a transaction or not. Because if you, let's say you're using a hot wallet, right? And you need to make a purchase really quickly. If you don't have enough Pulse on there, you're out of luck. You might have just lost, you know, a 10x right there. Now you only get like a 5x, which still good, but you know what I mean? You're going to be kicking yourself over that. So we want to touch on making sure that you understand the ecosystem, you understand the implications, the problems that it's trying to solve, how to work the ecosystem, how to use the dApps that are on it, which it's literally the same as Ethereum because it's a fork. It's like you literally just copy Ethereum. Like that's all he did. And I know everybody's mad. You can't just copy Ethereum. Well, we did. So get mad. Now we're just gonna have mad gains, and I'm looking forward to this summer as we see Bitcoin hit new highs, hopefully from these lows, and I mean have an altcoin season from there.
Yeah, look, a lot of good points there. Really good points. One of the things I just want to touch into before we close this session, before Jay closes the session for us, is you touched on gas fees, and that's one of the big things, right? One of the problems with Ethereum is when the bull markets happen, Ethereum's gas fees can be $50, $80, $100 per transaction, even if it's a small transaction. So what happens when you have a large transaction with whales involved, right? You're talking about a lot of gas fees. And so, yes, PulseChain is a copy of the Ethereum blockchain, but what's the major difference? And that's how much liquidity is in the coins. And the liquidity in PulseChain and PulseX is far superior to Ethereum, allowing for far reduced gas fees. So it takes first, some of the backlog, some of the pressure off Ethereum, right? Because you can use your transaction fees here on PulseChain for cheaper, but also gives you an alternate source of use. So really good points there.
Just one more quick thing. It also does allow for like any Ethereum like app to be just immediately copied over pretty much. So any company that wants to be like, hey, we want to move, you know, to a new chain and just expand our liquidity or whatever, they can just easily move over to PulseChain, which is another really key feature that I like.
One of the most important, right? If you had to rewrite every app for this blockchain, then you'd be missing the point. So I won't skip into it too much, but there's a lot there. Yeah, Jay, you want to finish off this segment for us?
Yeah, sure thing. So the guys kind of already touched on some of the key features for PulseChain, right? Faster, cheaper, but I think the reason why everybody wants to get in an asset class is we want mad gains, right? Well, historically speaking, L1s are one of the highest performing assets when it comes to cryptocurrency, right? 30, 100x, even more. And so if I'm going to take a bet on something, I'm going to take a bet on the L1 created by the guy who is not only extremely fucking smart, but he also created an asset class that did a 10,000x, right? The guy who, despite all the slander being thrown at him, right, had a product that had 100% uptime, okay? The guy who, despite being called a scammer, actually warned people of all of the fucking scams and the rugs that happened last year, right? I'm going to take a bet on that guy. And so why are we buying into PulseChain? It's an L1 created by Richard Hart, somebody who is extremely good at creating fantastic products. And, you know, I mean, created an asset class that went 10,000x. So that's definitely one of the key features that I'm looking forward to demand gains from PulseChain. But as far as personal experience, is very similar to you guys. I really do want to emphasize the fact that it's important to have a group of guys or just a group of people in general that have your back, because like I said, it's been mentioned already, but first mover advantage is a real thing, right? A lot of people within the space were suggesting to folks in the beginning, look, if you don't know what to do in the beginning, just do nothing. Wait for the craziness to kind of die down before you move in, right? And that, I'm not saying that wasn't good advice. That was actually very fantastic advice. What did we not account for? Well, we certainly did not account for the fact that the gas on PulseChain would go from fractions of a pulse to several thousand within the few days. And so guess what happened? The people who were waiting in the sidelines because they thought it was good advice, which it was, right? They were up shit's creek without a fucking paddle, right? They couldn't make any transactions, right? But since we were there from the inception, we were able to help each other really quick. Like the guy said, what was the first move that every single one of us did? Accumulate more pulse, right? And so we were able to make moves, right? What was one of the first things that Nate did for us, right? How do we add the coins? I don't see my copies onto my I don't see my copies on my Pulse wallet, right? On my MetaMask. Nate was kind enough, hey, here's how you add the contract addresses. So we could see our copies. We saw our copies. We were able to switch the worthless ones into PulseChain, right? And so I just wanted to emphasize that a little bit, right? Get yourself a group of people who's going to have your back, who is on the same trajectory, right? So that my experience with PulseChain so far has been nothing but positive, right? And that's in large part due to the fact that Richard Hart created something great, and that, you know, I had a group of guys around me that were helping each other out, so that we weren't behind the 8 ball like everybody else was after day one, because of fucking Zen. So that's all I got to say. So let's go ahead and
yeah, Jay, I just want to reiterate one thing you said. Mad gains. I mean, isn't the point of investing in anything to make money, right? Yes, we believe in the technology. We believe in the ecosystem. We believe in the long-term benefits of the space. But if you're not here to make money, then I don't know what you're here for. And then I guess I'll just end it before we move into the last section. Is
if you're not here to make money, you're a liar.
Good point, Jay. Good point. Maybe it's here for the women, but you're not gonna get any women without money. I'm joking, but half joking. But yeah. So the other thing that I'd just like to say is we were in a bunch of chats. I know that all of us here were in multiple chats that were happening with PulseChain. But if we didn't have our own chat saying, hey, this is what we need to do, and actually pushing each other to get ready for this launch, pushing each other to watch the chart so that you can make swing chains when it did launch. Honestly, I know personally that you guys pushed me to work harder, and that worked out for me in the long run. And I think that's what has, you know, having someone to hold you responsible, like you're talking about, Jay, having people that are like-minded, and that's important. So next section we're going to talk about, and by the way, this show might go a little bit longer than our average show. I think most of our average shows are probably going to be 1.5 to 2 hours. That's our sweet spot. But this is a brand new L1, and this is a lot of information that we just don't think breaking it up into 2 episodes really makes a lot of sense. So we're going to let this one run a little bit long. And what we'll do is probably maybe throw in some timestamps so that you can, you know, navigate it a bit easier. But the one thing I would like to ask you to do, we're brand new to this space. If you haven't already, please like our videos. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Not that all of us are super active yet on Twitter, but we're getting them. We're really serious about building content that's going to help you in the long run, and it's not going to cost you anything. So a like and a subscribe would be appreciated. Okay, so we're going to now talk about, you know, pre-launch activities. What do we do before Pulse launched, which we talked about a little bit, so we can maybe skip over that a little bit. Post-launch outcomes, right? We already talked about lacking Pulse and making sure we need to be there first, but there are a few other things that are really important, and then major milestones. And since he hasn't talked yet, Jeff, we know you have a lot to say, so kick off this segment. Thank you.
What's up?
My name's Jeff.
I was going to open with that. Before I even get into crypto, Nate, I really want to ask you, has anybody ever else told you look like Josh Brolin, or is that just me?
I think that's just you, bro. I think that's just you.
Okay, you've definitely seen the Goonies, right?
Yes, I've definitely seen the Goonies.
All right, just making sure. Okay, where to start? Jeez. I know all y'all are talking about when it launched and your situations with your girlfriends. I actually lucked out when it went live. I was sitting on my couch and I was like, oh shit, it's live. I'm like, I need you to like go to the grocery, get me 2 Red Bulls, a pizza, and like now. And I thought that was not going to go well. And she was like, all right, bet, and did it. So I was like, awesome. Like, sweet. You can have 5% when I'm rich one day. So essentially, my pre-launch strategy started a long time ago when he started getting, when I say he, I'm talking about Richard, when he started talking about PulseChain. From that point on, I immediately started accumulating more Hex and not staking any of it. I wanted as much liquid as possible because I didn't want to be handicapped to not be able to do what I wanted to do. But staking Hex is amazing, but just for my strategies, that's not what I wanted to do at the time. So basically, I took all my copies once it went live, and I had already decided I wanted 33% of all 3 on the PulseChain side. So I took my copies, boom, immediately I wanted Pulse, you know, because I only got into the PulseX sacrifice and I didn't want to have the gas issue. So boom, got Pulse immediately. Then I broke it all up. I went 33% Pulse, PulseX, PHEX. So, you know, kind of messed around with that for a while, then did some ratio trading, stuff like that. Then eventually when the bridge opened up, I immediately, when it went live, bridged over like probably 20%-ish. Played around with that, waited, well, first had to wait a long time for it to go through. And then once it went through and I felt secure about it, I bridged everything over. And like all my liquidity hacks, the whole bag. So then after that, basically, same thing. I took that, everything I bridged over, split that 33% 3 ways. So I got my portfolio exactly how I want it. That's when I really get into ratio trading EHEX and PHEX. Because at the time, by the way, I'm coughing a lot, I got a little cold. So I figured the way my logic was kind of coming together was I figured this would be the safest pair that I could ratio trade with the least amount of chance, but still make awesome gains. And honestly, after doing that for quite a few days, I was able to increase my bag by like a good 30%. So like, I was really happy with that. Post launch, honestly, do y'all want to get into yield farming right now or no?
I think we have yield farming a little bit later in this segment. Josh,
Yeah.
Would you confirm that?
He might have ran off, but I do remember mentioning.
Yeah, let's hold off on that for now because I know we're going to get into that more later.
So, but yeah, that's basically my pre and post experience with it. I really enjoyed it. Honestly, I was just having fun, man. I wanted to make the money, but you know, all the ratio trading, but it was fun. It was exciting, and I like that I was in it from ground zero. So I don't know. It was a really good time. I have some more thoughts on it later. That if I start talking about now, it's going to dive off into a different topic. So I'll save that.
Yeah, really good information. And I think one of the big things for us once it launched, all of us, was, hey, what's our plan now, right? We had a plan to start where we wanted to be, but because, you know, until something launches, you don't know what what to expect. And in fact, it's so new that it could change daily. And, you know, so when PulseChain launched, there was no way to bridge in money from Ethereum, right? So if you had Hex on Ethereum, there was no bridge yet to bring that Hex from Ethereum on to PulseChain. Now, if you had that Hex pre-snapshot, right, you're going to have your copies, but there's no way to bring new money in. So if people didn't have that money into the platform, if they didn't have that pulse to trade, like Jay was talking about, which honestly, almost nobody had. 1% of 1% maybe had pulse to trade. 1% of 1%, literally nobody. I don't have enough fingers and toes to tell you how many people I sent pulse to help with transaction fees. Not a single person. Okay, one person I actually knew in person as a friend. Everybody else, just random people that needed help. And that's pretty crazy to think about. And so if you're a pre-bridge, right, you have no way of getting pulse. And so the ratios, right, P-Hex to E-Hex are going crazy in both directions. PulseChain to PulseX going crazy in both directions. Pulse, P-Hex, which is, so when we say P-Hex, we're talking about Hex on PulseChain, E-Hex is Hex on Ethereum, just so that you don't get confused, because it is quite confusing at times, especially if you're new to the space. But I know that we were trading sometimes at 50% or 100% ratio. So we're gaining 50% to 100% on every one of our trades in the 4 days before the mainnet launched and the bridge opened, because we were just had massive opportunities. I can't even tell you how much money we made. Granted, none of these coins were worth anything at the time, right? They're worth zero, but we're making coins. And our goal long-term is to stack coins, because when the prices go up, the more coins you have, they're going to be worth more. I know that's super simple, but people always attribute dollar signs to value. And that's not always the case. You know, for us, the value is to increase our coin count. So when the dollar value increased, our bags increased, right? From a US dollar standpoint. And I don't want to get in too deep, because I could talk literally all night about this, because like Jeff said, not only was it fun, but together we really made some incredible moves. So Jay, you're one of the first movers, so hop in there.
My strategy didn't really deviate too much from what a lot of the other guys have already spoken about. So I'll just touch on what I plan to do after and what I'm doing now. So I'm very active with the ratio trading, which we'll go over a little bit later in the show. But for me, I'm really heavy on TA, and so as soon as the charts were live for all of these different assets that we were following, I started charting. Right, I started charting and I started sussing out some of these patterns, and that'll help me in the long run make trades, right? And so for me, that's what I've been doing. After that first weekend and the charts went live, I started charting. Right, and being able to do that's actually one of my favorite things as a technical analyst, being able to observe a new ecosystem from day one, watch those charts mature and watch those patterns unfold, right? Because when I first learned TA, it was on Bitcoin, right? And that chart for Bitcoin is more than 10 years old, right? It's really difficult to go all the way back from day one and start charting from day one to see what patterns you can suss out, right? But with a new chain like PulseChain, you could do that with every single token that comes live, right? Because we're only 40 days old or so with a lot of these tokens. And so I'm able to start recognizing these patterns early on, right? And so for me personally, that's one of my favorite parts post launch is being able to start really diving into the analysis of these different coins. But aside from that, nothing too different. I'll speak more into ratio trading sometime down along the show, because we're going to go over that specifically. But that's really it for me, brother.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not gonna add any more, because we have a lot to get to. So Will, what you got for us?
Yeah, so my strategy, just like you guys saying, nothing crazy. I just stacked up a bunch of Hex for liquidity before the when I presumed the snapshot was, and then as soon as a snapshot happened, and I was able to get, you know, some pulse for gas fees. First thing I did was swap for pulse. Then after that, swap for Hex, and then I just kind of watched the charts. And as I saw advantages, then I would switch more Hex into those other two different asset classes, and that was really all that I did. And just sat there and looked at numbers, and when the numbers went up or went down, I would buy respectively. You know, that's basically all that I got, fellas.
Thank you, Will. So let's finish this segment off with Dace. Why don't you take it away for us?
Yeah, so you know, like these guys are saying, I think Jeff mentioned hitting his targets on some of your bags, and you know, there are totals that are posted out there with different intervals in terms of this much is this generalized value in the ecosystem, or percent holding of the total ecosystem. A lot of people equate those numbers to round it off, you know, hey, get to quote unquote turtle or quote unquote squid levels or whatever it is. I think hitting your targets now for your bags and then being willing to see them go down 20, 30, 40, 50% from here will be something that you are happy that you did in a year to 2 years from now. You know, like you guys are saying, crypto is very volatile. This coin is brand new. I think that it's got a lot of potential in the future. But I think like any coin, you have to be willing to watch your USD value move around, like you guys are saying, to value the coin number and not the dollar value number. You know, just about any and every L1, if you look at its chart, you look back at the first 90 days, which we're in right now for PulseChain, anybody would, you know, would very, very much like to have been there, and we were there for this. And so hopefully that changes our futures. That would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Dace. I think there's two important things to just reiterate there. First is don't trade emotionally, right? If you see your bags going down 20 or 30%, you have to first ask yourself, hey, why did I buy this coin? And do I still believe in it? Okay, if you don't believe in it, if you think you made a mistake, okay, maybe it's time to sell and switch to a different coin. But if you bought and you have a long-term plan, then 20% or 30% down in crypto, I hate to say this, 20% or 30% down in crypto isn't that much, because when you're starting to see those 10Xs, those 100Xs, maybe those 1000Xs when it comes to a new layer one, you know, that's the long-term goal. So don't be short-sighted. Now make some short-term plays, but don't be short-sighted. I think that's the important thing to remember. So good things there. Okay, so we're gonna take it to the next PulseChain topic. Again, we have a lot of really good topics here. This is a brand new layer one. Again, it launched on May 13th, so just over 40 days, as I mentioned and Jay mentioned. And so we want to help you understand this space better, and we want to help you maybe become more efficient at working it. So we're going to talk about the developmental takeaways, the challenges that we've encountered, or maybe the platforms encountered, not just us. And then what's the direction? Where's this platform going, and what do we expect for the future? So we're going to start off with Josh.
Yeah, Jay, you had your hand up. Did you want to pop in real quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment about what Brendan said about not emotionally trading, right? When people started to see the price dip significantly, right, and they were expecting on launch that price for both PulseChain, PulseX, and then the Hex pairs, they were expecting that to go up significantly, and it didn't happen, right? So people were pretty down in the dumps watching that price go down. But then all of us as investors, you have to realize that, look, take a step back. A lot of us didn't get the opportunity to sack for PulseChain or PulseX. And so for me as an investor, saw that as an opportunity. I was like, Are you telling me that I didn't have to wait 2 years and now I get to buy in at a price that's lower than SAC rate for both Pulse and Pulse X, right? And so when Brendan says don't trade emotionally, that ties into it, right? Take a step back, take a breath, look at it from a macro perspective. Okay, so what? The coins are down. It didn't make the number of X's that we expected to on launch. Okay, where's the silver lining? We can buy in at below SAC price, right? And over the past week, a lot of us have been buying below SAC price, right? Around that 7 area in PulseChain. So, you know, I just wanted to make that very perfectly clear. Don't get tunnel vision when you're analyzing this market, right? Don't trade emotionally, right? And don't get too attached to a certain ecosystem. We might like the Richard Heart ecosystem and we might like these tokens, but don't get attached to it emotionally. Take a step back and analyze things objectively and from a macro perspective, and so that you don't make mistakes that people who trade emotionally do. So that's all I had to say on that.
Hey man, if y'all aren't following my boy Agent J on Twitter, you guys need to be following this man real quick. That's all I gotta say. But yeah, I'm gonna transition it real quick. So key takeaways. Brendan, you and I, we talked about this in DC. The biggest key lesson learned, at least for me, it went into the planning and the preparation. The reason I say that is I had a solid game plan for what I thought would play out. I spent weeks developing a strategy with covering each and every point that I foresaw happening, to accumulate pulse, to accumulate pulse chain, different ratios, preparing buy limits and all that sort of stuff mentally, and I had it written down. But I didn't fully prepare for every single scenario. And that's one of the big takeaways. That's one of the key lessons that I learned. Case in point, I mentioned this to you down in DC, but there was about a 2-minute stretch. Now, I think I was probably one of the first 500 people that were logged in with my wallet in the ecosystem as soon as it launched. I swear I had to have been one of the first 500 because I saw the most insane ratios going on. And then I saw for a 30-second period, I saw 1 PulseX for 2 PulseChain. I saw that and it scared me because I wasn't prepared for it. And for 30 seconds in my head, I had to ask myself, do I want to completely scrap my entire plan? And I froze. I'll admit it, I froze because I didn't have that situation prepared for. So I froze. I didn't do anything. Yeah, I'm still on my plan. It's, at this point, it's water under the bridge. But that right there, making sure you plan for every single possible scenario. That is the one big thing that I learned. Second point is, when you're brand new into an L1, this is my first L1 getting, I'm pretty sure everybody on this channel, it's our first L1s getting into it. 1 to 2 different rules that I have, hard rules that I have, is develop a solid DCA strategy and stick to it. Of course, don't invest more than will keep you up at night, but a solid DCA investment strategy, and pretend the red sell button doesn't even exist. Pretend that sell button doesn't even exist.